Hey everyone, welcome back to Genai World News. We are jumping straight into our top story today because it is a big one. A gunman opened fire at an event in Washington attended by President Donald Trump, causing chaos and raising serious questions about security at the highest levels of American politics. According to BBC News, the suspect was arrested at the scene and is due to appear in court on Monday. The incident took place at what was described as a press dinner event, sending attendees scrambling for cover. In a striking first-hand account also reported by BBC News, a performer named Oz Perlman, who describes himself as a mentalist, says he was mid-conversation with Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt when the attack unfolded. Perlman recounts locking eyes with the president as both ducked for cover, a moment that speaks to just how close this incident came to the most powerful office in the world. And as Politico is reporting, the political fallout has already begun. Republicans are pointing fingers at Democratic rhetoric, drawing on a playbook they also used following the assassination attempts against Trump back in 2024. Meanwhile, President Trump has sought to project calm, telling reporters that King Charles will be, quote, very safe during his upcoming U.S. state visit, a sign that security discussions are now front and center at the diplomatic level. This story is still developing, and we will keep you updated as more details emerge. Moving on now to a major shakeup in global energy markets. The Financial Times is reporting that Shell has agreed to acquire Canadian shale producer ARC Resources in a blockbuster deal worth $16 billion. This is one of the biggest oil and gas transactions in recent years, and it signals that Shell is doubling down on fossil fuel production at a time when some investors have been questioning whether the company's growth strategy is ambitious enough. ARC is a significant player in Canada's shale sector, and this acquisition will meaningfully boost Shell's output. The timing is particularly notable. Energy prices have been volatile, and as we'll cover a bit later in today's show, Goldman Sachs is warning that oil could spike to nearly $120 a barrel if geopolitical tensions drag on. For Shell, locking in more production capacity now could look like a very smart move indeed. Critics, however, will argue that pouring $16 billion into new fossil fuel infrastructure runs counter to global climate commitments. Either way, this deal is set to reshape the competitive landscape of the energy sector in a major way. Here's a story that sits right at the intersection of tech, geopolitics, and the AI arms race. The Financial Times is reporting that China has blocked Meta's $2 billion bid to acquire Manus, a Chinese-linked artificial intelligence group. Beijing's regulators stepped in after reviewing whether the deal violated Chinese rules around foreign investment and the outflow of strategic technology. This is a significant move. Meta has been aggressively expanding its AI capabilities, and Manus had been seen as a valuable target. But China has been tightening its grip on AI assets it considers strategically important, and this decision sends a clear message. Beijing is not going to let cutting-edge AI companies walk out the door into American hands, regardless of the price tag. It's yet another flashpoint in the broader U.S.-China tech rivalry, and it raises the question of where Meta turns next in its AI acquisition strategy. The global race to dominate artificial intelligence just got a little more complicated. Now to a story that underscores just how deep the alliance between Pyongyang and Moscow has become. The Financial Times is reporting that North Korea has opened a museum dedicated to honoring its soldiers who were killed while fighting on Russia's behalf. Kim Jong-un and senior Russian officials reportedly attended commemorations, with both sides pledging to deepen their long-term military cooperation. This is extraordinary when you think about it. North Korea is not just supplying weapons and ammunition to Russia's war effort. It is now openly memorializing the soldiers it has lost in that conflict. The museum is essentially state propaganda that normalizes and glorifies North Korean participation in a European land war. For Western governments and NATO allies, this development is a stark reminder that the conflict in Ukraine has drawn in actors far beyond Europe's borders, creating a new axis of military cooperation that poses challenges for the international order well beyond the current battlefield. Staying in the conflict zone, BBC News has a rare and fascinating interview with Commander Robert Bravdi, the man leading Ukraine's drone warfare operations. And the numbers he shared are staggering. According to the BBC, His unit alone is responsible for destroying roughly one-third of all targets hit on the Ukrainian battlefield. One-third. That is an astonishing concentration of battlefield impact in a single command. But what's perhaps most telling is what Bravdi says his unit has in its sights: Russian oil infrastructure, troop concentrations, and crucially, morale. Ukraine has clearly decided that disrupting Russia's energy revenues and demoralizing its forces from a distance is a core part of its long-term strategy. Drones have fundamentally changed the economics and the geography of this war, allowing Ukraine to punch well above its weight against a larger conventional military force. This interview is a window into how modern warfare is evolving in real time. Switching to the skies now, and there is serious turbulence in the U.S. airline industry. The Financial Times is reporting that United Airlines chief executive Scott Kirby has publicly criticized American Airlines for refusing to even sit down and discuss a potential merger. Kirby reportedly accused American of, quote, closing the door on a deal he believes would have created thousands of jobs and strengthened the U.S. airline industry's competitive position. Now, airline mega-mergers are notoriously complex. They face intense regulatory scrutiny, labor union negotiations, and massive operational challenges. But Kirby's willingness to go public with his frustration suggests that behind the scenes, things got heated. American Airlines has not shown any indication it wants to pursue a combination, and given the current regulatory environment, it's not hard to see why they'd be cautious. Still, the war of words between two of America's biggest carriers is worth watching. It could signal a new round of consolidation pressure across the industry. Here is a story that feels like it's come straight out of a decade ago, because in many ways, it has. The Financial Times is reporting that Somali piracy is back, with maritime authorities and intelligence agencies confirming that 4 ships have been seized off the Somali coast in just the past week. For those who remember, Somali piracy reached a peak in the late 2000s and early 2010s before a major international naval crackdown brought it under control. The resurgence is alarming for global shipping, which is already under significant strain from disruptions in the Red Sea. 4 ships in a single week is not a blip, that is a pattern. Analysts will now be watching closely to see whether this is an opportunistic surge by criminal networks taking advantage of stretched naval resources or something more organized and sustained. Either way, the world's shipping lanes are facing threats on multiple fronts right now, and that has real consequences for global trade and supply chains. And finally for today, Romania is in the grip of a serious political crisis. The Financial Times is reporting that the country's Social Democrats have joined forces with the far right to bring down Prime Minister Ilie Balagan through a vote of no confidence. This comes just 1 week after the Social Democrats left his coalition government. The speed of this political reversal is remarkable, and the alliance between a mainstream left-of-center party and the far right raises genuine concerns about democratic norms in Romania and the broader direction of travel in Central and Eastern Europe. Romania is a NATO member and an EU state, so political instability there carries real geopolitical weight. Analysts will be watching to see what kind of government emerges from this crisis, and whether Romania's commitments to its Western allies hold firm under whatever new political arrangement comes next. It is a story that deserves far more attention than it is getting. And that is a wrap on today's Genai World News. We have covered a lot of ground, from Washington's shooting scare to energy megadeals, AI geopolitics, drones over Ukraine, and piracy on the high seas. If you found today's show valuable, do us a favor and hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss a broadcast. We are back very soon with more. Stay informed, stay sharp. I'm Genai, and this has been your World News.